Hello and good morning. Conversation 2. Our midterms, thankfully, are all done. Everybody attended and got through their interviews. Lots of good interviews were conducted, and there was lots of mistakes too. I think the best thing to do is to send you your grades individually by email. So I'm still processing them, and it looks like I made comments for everyone, but for a few students, the comments got deleted. So you just have scores, unfortunately. I can remember vaguely what your answers were, but for most students, you could see I was typing some things. But anyway, the scores are all there, but a few comments are missing. So I apologize for that. I don't know what happened, how they got deleted, but as you know, with the internet disruption during the first round of midterms, there were strange things happening, and I guess the file crashed without saving some of the comments. It's strange, but it only affects 4 or 5 of you. Everybody else will have full comments. Anyway, over the next week or so, I will be emailing them to you so you have your grades. Today, we're just doing a recorded lecture. There's no homework, there's no test, there's no assignment. Next Monday, we will have another Zoom lecture to talk about how the midterm went and to talk about the presentation and the final exam. So next week, there will be no recorded lecture. We will have a Zoom lecture, and then following that, the 12 and 13 will be the last 2 chapters of the book, and then there'll be an exam review, and then there's an exam, and that's the whole class. So next week will be your chance to practice speaking. So I hope everybody, is energetic and eager to participate, because this semester you have not had much practice speaking. That was evident in some people's answers and their nervousness. Now, today we're talking about space. I've labeled this lecture Space, the Final Frontier, because those are the beginning, that's the beginning of the introduction, the theme song, the theme intro to Star Trek. So there's lots of things to talk about when it comes to space. Again, this is a very open topic. I'm not saying you would sit down, at a cafe with your friends and talk about space. But it's a topic that's very important. It doesn't have to be academic. You can talk about it in a fun way, and you can talk about it in an interesting way, and you can talk about it in a serious way. Technology has developed to the point where space is very important to us. Everybody has a phone. Everybody's using GPS over here. Lots of people don't even know what GPS stands for, but they know what it does. So Star Trek is a show, and it's a movie, franchise, which you may or may not like. It's a science fiction story about, the future of human beings, where all human beings are organized in one government. We are joined in something called the Federation. In fact, not just Earth, but all of the planets that are connected to the human government, the Federation government on Earth, are joined together. So we've managed in the future to stop having nations. There's no such thing as Korea or France or United Kingdom or Canada anymore. All of us are joined together under one unified government that covers all of the planets and all of the space that human beings and aliens that have joined the Federation occupy. So it's a vision of the future, a kind of strange utopian vision of the future where everybody's getting along. However, on the edges on the frontier, on the edges of the space controlled by the Federation, are still dangerous things. There's still aliens. There's still things to explore. It's got a quite complicated concept to it, and it's certainly, you know, guilty sometimes of reproducing some of the, you know, stereotypes and perspectives of, you know, North American culture and so on. What's wrong with, why is my screen turned dark? It's weird. Might have to pause for a second. I don't want to be in the dark. Okay, that was strange. I'm not sure if, hopefully the brightness is not a problem, but I'm going to continue anyway. So as I was saying, Star Trek, obviously it's produced by an American company, so, you know, the spaceship, that's the main focus of the exploration expedition is called the Enterprise, which is named after an aircraft carrier from World War II. So there's a lot of things to unpack when it comes to Star Trek, but the main idea is there's so much out there that we don't know, we can't even imagine. And so it is an imagining of the future, and it's an imagining of space beyond what we know. Many other shows depend on that idea too. The main competitor for, you know, attention in the space science fiction movie genre is Star Wars. Don't confuse Star Trek with Star Wars, otherwise you may offend one fan or another, because they're very passionate sometimes about that difference. Okay, the light just seemed to correct itself suddenly. I don't know what's going on with my camera, but here's a few things that we throw around all the time. Some people think we already have been visited by aliens. So anything that comes from another planet that's not from Earth, it's not terrestrial, is an extraterrestrial. There's a famous movie from the 1980s. They call him E.T. because he's an extraterrestrial, otherwise known as an alien. I have an alien card, in fact, because I'm not from Korea. So, but I think I heard that they're in the process of changing my alien registration card to something else, like resident card or something like that, or non-resident card or something like that. In Canada, there's no such thing as an alien card. If you get over there and you register, they don't give you your alien card. I thought it was funny or strange when I got here, and I don't really care anymore. But some people seem to care, that they don't want to be called an alien. So the Korean government is deciding whether they're going to change the word. Anyway, I do have an alien registration card, so I am an alien. I'm a registered alien. UFO, we say this one all the time. This is not the alien itself. It's just something in the sky that you don't know what it is. That's why in the military, that's what they say. It became famous in the media because some people think, you know, that the military has seen aliens. And I saw last year some video of some American, you know, fighter pilots seeing some, you know, flying object, and then it like flew away at like hyperspeed or something. These are all, you know, rumors and stories that appear in the media all the time. Some people believe them, some people they don't, but we never seem to be able to have really good evidence of it. So as of now, there's no real proof. We call this unidentified, meaning I don't know what it is, flying object. Now these could be human-made things. Remember, when people started, when the Russians and the Americans and then the Chinese and other countries started experimenting with rockets and shooting them into outer space, sometimes these, you know, intercontinental missiles flying around, they would be picked up by satellites, and people would not know that they belonged to somebody else. And frequently there's some pretty scary moments. If you're looking on the radar or a satellite picks up something and you don't know what it is, if it's a rock from outer space that wasn't picked up because it's too small, or it's a missile flying over, at high speed in the upper atmosphere. So that's what a UFO is. It's a sort of announcement that you made contact with something that you don't know what it is. NASA, you all know NASA. That's the American space program. It's National Aeronautics Space Administration. Okay? I'm not going to write that one down because we don't walk around saying that. We always say NASA. Likewise with GPS, nobody says, what is it? Global Positioning System? Yeah, global, okay. I didn't even have to check. Nobody says it anymore. We just say GPS, we just say NASA, we just say UFO or ET. So these are acronyms that have almost become words because almost nobody says the full extension, especially NASA. I had to look that up a few years ago. It's administration. I thought it was agency, but it's administration. The first person to go into outer space was Russian. I don't know how to say his name properly, but his first name was Yuri Alexeyev. Anyway, the first people to walk on the moon were Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. And Michael Collins was the third astronaut who flew the module around the moon to come back and pick them up. Don't forget, there was 3 guys. I think Yuri went up by himself, but he was the first person to go around the Earth. And let's not forget there was a dog too. The Russians sent up a dog. The very first animal to go around the Earth was a dog named, I'm not sure if you pronounce it Laika, but that was the first astronaut, was a dog, actually. I find these things all interesting. You may not. That's true. But space has become increasingly important to us. The United States has now created a division of their Air Force called Space Force, which I find that name very funny. Star Trek sounds cool, but it doesn't sound like it's real. It sounds like science fiction. Space Force sounds real too, but it actually sounds like it's a TV show, not a branch of the military, but it is. Donald Trump created this Space Force in 2019. So it's only like a year and a half old or something. Anyway, it's part of the Air Force. The Air Force already had a sort of division of itself that was responsible for space operations, because Air Force has all the personnel and vehicles that are involved in flying, and space is a type of flying, but they decided to start to create another military branch to extend the military operations into space itself. So in the future, the Space Force may be the largest, but right now it's the smallest. There is a Netflix a Netflix series with a comedian who plays the general of the new Space Force, and he's struggling with it because, military branches always compete with each other, especially for funding and for influence and for power. So being the smallest branch, least important and newest branch of the military, American military, causes a lot of political problems for him. And it's a comedy. It's a comedy about it. It's quite funny. It's an American style comedy. So, there's some, family drama involved in it. At the beginning of the series, the general's wife goes to jail, and his daughter has to move, to a military base and leave, her old school and make new friends and everything gets all tangled up with his career and his personal life. There's some references to the Trump administration and the complications that are involved in dealing with an administration that just tells you to do things and doesn't plan things very well. So it's quite funny. Check it out if you're interested. It's in English. It's on Netflix, Korean Netflix, and it has subtitles. So I watched the whole thing with my wife, and we found it funny. Things about space. There's a lot of adjectives that you can use. It's cold, it's empty, it's scary, it's amazing. You can look at pictures of the you can look at pictures of space all day. Those Hubble Space Telescopes and pictures, and the other ones, if you search pictures of nebula or galaxies or whatever, clouds, pulsars, any kind of space telescope pictures, you can just search Hubble scope pictures. You will find some incredibly beautiful pictures, and that might stimulate your interest in talking about space. Here we go. On page 91, would you like to travel to space? This is something I think has suddenly become more relevant. You may have seen on TV, Bezos and Blue Origin went into outer space briefly and came back down. Jeff Bezos being the space cowboy, super billionaire Amazon owner, and Richard Branson, who he's the kingpin of Virgin Mobile. His rocket also went up, and he came down successfully. And Blue Origin went up again with a famous Canadian actor who happened to be the actor who played Captain Kirk on Star Trek. It all comes full circle, I guess, from pretending to be a captain who's exploring space and acting as Captain Kirk, and then at 90 years old, he's 90 now, he got to go back up into real space. One of the most famous Canadian actors of all time. He's a comedian and a dramatist, and a public figure. And he's been active, my whole life. He's 90, so he was acting long before I was born. And he was a handsome, good actor when he was known for being handsome and sort of dramatic when he was his certain way of speaking. And he was on Star Trek. So, there's so many things you can talk about when it comes to space. This is an interesting story that you could explain if you wanted to. If somebody asked me, what do you think about space and space travel? That's what I would say. William Shatner, fellow Canadian, was 90 years old, and he got to go up. So yeah, I'd like a turn. I'm not famous, and I'm not a millionaire or a billionaire, but I'm interested in going up there. The thing is, I think the thing we have to ask though also is, these billionaires going up there, they're claiming this is good for all of us. It's still a very, very expensive and very, very environmentally unfriendly thing to do. Obama canceled the space shuttle program, and you can look at the videos of the shuttles going up. I actually saw the Challenger disaster, the shuttle that exploded in the 1980s, 1986. Or 85. I was a little kid, and they interrupted my children's program to show the shuttle taking off and exploding. But whether they explode or not, the amount of fuel, of jet fuel, and the amount of energy it is required to build them and put all the systems together, and then to get that much weight out of the Earth's gravity. It's an incredible amount of energy, just ridiculous. And the amount of pollution that is caused by a single shuttle flight into outer space is astronomical. And that's the perfect word, because astronomical means in space. It means it's so big that it's like unimaginably far. So we've got to find a way to go to space that doesn't continue to damage our environment. To escape the Earth's gravity requires a huge amount of energy, and if that energy is not clean energy, we are damaging ourselves. So, yes, thank you, rich people, Elon Musk, for SpaceX, and being able to get things into space so that we can use technology. But at the same time, we need to work on a way to make space travel less damaging to the environment. If everybody's flying up there and causing huge amounts of pollution, we're all going to die before we get to Mars, before we start colonizing other planets and living in space. We're all going to be dead because the Earth is going to be destroyed. So it's kind of a backwards way of looking at it. You should be trying to fix the problems that we have with flight and how bad it is for our environment already. If you take an international flight, like I do, go to Canada and back, that amount of pollution you cause is similar to you driving a small car for a year. That's how much pollution is coming from aerospace, right? These millions and millions of people moving around in space, they're burning jet fuel all the way across the Earth. Think about how much, like if you just did an experiment and you had a nice clean ball, to simulate the Earth, and then you just sprayed smoke all over it every day for a year, and then you looked at the ball at the end, what do you think it would look like? It would be black and it would be super dirty. The only thing that's saving us is that we have plants and carbon trapping, life forms and water. That there's things that are absorbing that smoke, but you can only handle so much. If that sponge ball you had the ability to absorb some of that smoke, then if you just sprayed a little bit of smoke all year, it would probably absorb all of the smoke and it would look fine. But if you were just covering it in smoke all day, every day, by the end it would be so black that you wouldn't be able to see its original color. Eventually that's going to happen to our Earth as well. If we just, look up at space and figure out ways to get there and disregard the consequences to the Earth and the energy we're taking from it and the pollution we're putting into it, it's not going to matter if we get to other planets, because our Earth is already going to be destroyed. For grammar situations, of course, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, and we don't know what it's like in space. So you want to say things like, would or could or if, like it's a suggestion, right? If I had the chance to fly to outer space, I would or I would not, right? So you can answer this. You can answer these questions how you want. As I said, would you like to travel to space? Why or why not? Would you like to get away from the effects of gravity? And what could you do that if you did? You want to visit the moon? You want to look at the Earth? What exciting or adventurous thing would you like to do in your life and why? That's off topic a little bit because I'm going to keep it focused on space. But here, here's somebody's using their imagination to come up with something here. I'll read this one because it's kind of funny. On page 94, imagine we went to the moon and we started to make a moon base, right? They're talking about trying to get to Mars. Hopefully we do take care of Earth properly, but there is a possibility of establishing, scientific studies or even sort of some sort of moon tourist operation. Not that people would want to permanently live on the moon, but maybe, I don't know. But we might want to have a base there where we could travel to it and for different purposes. Maybe there are resources or things we can study or we can, use it as some sort of vacation place. So this is what this is about, having some sort of vacation on on the moon. Would you like a honeymoon on the moon? This might be possible one day. Hilton International, the international hotel company, has announced plans to build the first hotel on the moon. The announcement follows the discovery of water, which has greatly increased the possibility of colonizing the moon. The lunar Hilton would have 5,000 rooms and many facilities, including restaurants, a church, and even a beach. Food would come from farms on the moon's surface, and the ice discovered on the moon's poles could be used for water. The hotel would be powered by solar panels. 2 Japanese companies have also expressed interest in this development in the space race. Shimizu is planning an orbiting 64-room space hotel by 2020. Well, they missed that target. And a hotel on the moon's surface. Nishimatsu construction company also has a plan for a moon resort called Escargot City. It's got a French name, that means Snail City, okay. A reference to the shape of the 10 towers they plan to build. Escargot means snail in French. So what does the moon offer tourists who would like to experience a lunar vacation? After completing the journey, guests could enjoy a variety of activities from golf and tennis to excursions in special moon buses. They would first have to get used to wearing special boots because there is little gravity on the moon. The Hilton has already been in contact with NASA about transportation of passengers and building materials, but scientists reacted with surprise and disbelief. They have mentioned both the incredible expense and the dangers of space travel. However, tourists looking for a room with a really special view would love it. Also, honeymoon couples wanting to give a new meaning to the word might find the moon the perfect definition. What a good joke. Honeymoon, go to the moon. Okay, I'm done. That's a pretty corny joke at the end. So there's endless things to talk about. I know some people are more or less interested, but suggestions for how you can talk about this. Some people have dreamt of going to outer space since they were young. If that's you, that would be an easy way to talk about this. If you want to imagine something like hotels on the moon, that's a good suggestion too. Just make something up and use your imagination. What you think would be interesting about having a moon base or a hotel on the moon, and why you would like to visit such a place. If you're just interested in the thrill, the chance of doing a riding on a spaceship on a rocket and being in outer space for 10 minutes and having the chance to look back at the Earth, because that's one of the things that pretty much all astronauts say, is it's looking back at the Earth that's the most breathtaking, most amazing thing about the experience, is looking back and seeing the blue marble, that view. It just has an effect on your mind. It changes your perspective on the Earth. You can't ever forget that image. That I was on that. That's where I came from. That's us. That's all of us together. And there it is. I can fit it. I can pinch it with my finger. So you can feel that the insignificance of the Earth and yourself. You can feel yourself as like just a small, tiny pinpoint in the motions of the universe. You can talk about the technology. You can talk about things in the news, like space programs. I know Korea sent a rocket up recently. Current events, technology that uses space. You can talk about how entering space is causing damage to the environment, not just the fuel and the energy that we use to move stuff up and back and forth to space, but also, all the garbage we've left. There are millions of pieces of garbage flying around the Earth at tens of thousands of kilometers an hour, just whipping around. Some of that stuff falls onto the ground. Some of it, hits satellites and punches holes through them, causes damage. These pieces of garbage are going, and they're usually metal or electronic bits of things, and they're going so fast that they're like bullets going through equipment. So sometimes they have to repair space stations and equipment and satellites because they've been damaged by space garbage. Big problem. Eventually, we're going to have so much space garbage out there that we're going to have to be careful that, you know, when we fly up there, we don't get hit by it. So there's lots of things to discuss when it comes to space. Of course, you know, whether aliens exist, whether you think there are aliens on Earth, or they will visit us, or they have visited us, anything like that is allowed because it's all related to space. So you take your pick: technology, you know, a personal thing, hotels on the moon, what you expect to happen in the future, and then explain to me what you are interested in. But it just has to be related to space. And that's it for this lecture, this Monday. Week 10 is done. And like I said, I'll work away at your midterms to get them back to you. And next Monday, we'll have Zoom lectures instead of recorded lectures, okay? Look forward to it. See you next Monday.